咦，又走咗個嘅。OK 嚇，OK 咁啊，多謝大家出席呢。
Welcome, welcome to this meeting. Today we will be working out the preparatory work for the Select Committee. I'm sure that you've read the agenda for today's meeting. Before we get started, I'd like to talk about ROP 83A and 84. It has to do with the pecuniary interest on the part of members. And 84 is in relation to the prohibition of members from taking part if there is pecuniary interest. And there is no definition for pecuniary interest per se. It is proposed that members can make the declaration in writing to me should there be such interests. And at the public hearings, I can decide on the nature of the interests so declared. And I'd like to make a declaration here. I am independent non-executive director of Hang Lung Group, and there is AP World under Hang Lung, which in 1996 had a property project with an MTRC, and that is Harborside on Kowloon side. And I'd like to so declare at this juncture. Mr. Tenkapio, I own some small amount of shareholdings of MTRC. Mr. Chen, I am a small shareholder of the MTRC. Any further declarations? It's up to members to decide. Any further declarations? My declaration doesn't have any pecuniary interests, and it doesn't have anything to do with the delay. All right, unless you have any further declarations, let's move on to item number 1, proposed practice and procedure for the Select Committee. Members, please refer to CB4 to 16/14 to 15 bracket 01. And this is about the proposed practice and procedure, a paper prepared by the Secretariat. In the light of the Select Committee set up before, in particular the one to do with Mr. Timothy Tong's duty visits entertainment, bestowing and receipt of gifts during his tenure as Commissioner of ICAC, this practice and procedure was put together in the light of that. And also we have to bear in mind that we don't enjoy the PNP under Cap 382, Section 9(1). And the Secretariat might wish to take us through the paper, please. Will members please refer to paper CB4 to 16/14-15 bracket 01. The chairman mentioned that we made reference to the practice of other select committees. If members may refer to the appendix, we basically adopt the procedures and practice that we adopted before, subject to some minor amendments. Very briefly, I like point number 4, term of office, or the tenure of office. This will end when the term ends. And once a report has been made to the LegCo, or by the time the 5th LegCo comes to an end, the Select Committee will be disbanded. If we cannot get the job done within the term, we will have to make a report to the Council. And para 6, quorum. Now we try to make it clear that if we run out of a quorum, then the chairman will summon members to attend. If after 15 minutes the quorum is not present, then the chairman will close the meeting or the hearing. And then voting, obtaining evidence, conduct of meetings, and the procedures for questioning the witnesses, and they were adopted before. And para 16, the way in which the hearings is going to be conducted. And para 30, there are some minor amendments about the participation of non-select committee members. There is a slight difference here from the past, and we try to simplify the wordings here. Non-select committee members may attend meetings or hearings held in public, but may not speak at these meetings. If a non-select committee member wishes to direct any question to a witness, then the question should be put to the chairman for him to decide whether the questions will be asked. And then the minutes of the proceedings, and also the compilation of the report of the Select Committee, and how we deal with the evidence collected during the hearing. Basically adopt a previous practice. Thank you. Just a reminder that where necessary, we can update the proposed practice and procedure as we go along. The Secretary made it very clear that we will have to get the report completed before the end of the term. Otherwise, the work will be curtailed, and we will report to the Council that we are not going to be able to complete the work. So we don't have a lot of time. So please bear this in mind when we look at the timetable. Any comments regarding item 1, proposed practice and procedure? No comments? All right, then this is endorsed. Item 2, proposed major areas of work or of study. Please refer to CB4 to 16/14 to 15 bracket 02. And this is with reference to the terms of reference of the Select Committee Secretary, please. Chairman, thank you. Other than this paper, we also have the other paper, IN 01/14 to 15. And this is a brief of the information summarizing the views of the members of the public. This is compiled for members' information. As regards the paper 02, there are 4 major areas for study, including a total of 16 points. These are the major areas for investigation. Like the background and reasons for the delay of the construction of the express railway. We will cover the scope and implementation schedule, and also the implementation progress of the project as announced in April 2014, the reasons for the project delay. We will look at the monitoring mechanism of the project, in particular the roles of the government, the corporation, and the monitoring and verification consultant in the project. We'll look at the delay recovery measures adopted by the corporation to catch up with the schedule. The other area is the performance and accountability of the government and the corporation relating to the project delay. We will focus on the entrustment agreement between the government and the corporation. We will cover the major details of the concession approach, which is adopted for the implementation of the project, including the responsibilities and liabilities of the government and the corporation. And C, the performance of the senior management of the government and the corporation and parties concerned in respect of the supervision of the implementation and interface of these parties. D, accountability of the government and the corporation in respect of the delay. And number 3, we will ascertain whether the government and the corporation have deliberately covered up the project delay. In 3A, we will have a look at the communication or reporting mechanism within the corporation, and B, the communication and reporting mechanism between the corporation and the government in respect of the progress, and C, communication and reporting between the corporation and the government in respect of the announcement of the delay, and D, the timeliness and comprehensiveness of the information provided by the government and the corporation to the committee or subcommittee on matters relating to railways. The fourth area is in relation to recommendations on how the government can enhance the supervision of the construction of new railway projects and strengthen the governance of the corporation in delivering railway projects in the future. And this is covered in the petition itself. So once the findings are available, we will have discussion as to what recommendations are going to be made regarding the how the supervision can be enhanced, and B, based on the findings of the study, we will make recommendation on how the government can strengthen the governance of the corporation, and C, any recommendations on any related matters.
And 各位
Members, you may now give your comments on the proposed major areas of work. Mr. Chen Kam-lam, Chairman. I think this is a very detailed paper from the Secretariat. It's comprehensive. It covers all the detailed aspects that the Select Committee should cover. Thank you. Who else would like to say something? Mr. Chen Hangban? Yes, it's very detailed. Can we have something on the principles in deciding the project period, project time. Yes, the formulation of the original plan. Yes. Do we have something to that effect? 1A. Scope and implementation schedule of the construction of the Hong Kong section of XRL. I think that's it. Mr. Wu Chi-wai? I want to make 2 points. The inquiry may involve many technical aspects, many technical details. We have visited the database of MTRC, and there are many technical details there. Maybe we can be assisted by independent experts in our work. So that's point number 1. Also, we have got different reports, 2 from the MTRC, and we are expecting another one. So there will be 3 reports. I understand these reports are for our reference only. We are not bound to regard those findings in the reports as facts. I'm concerned that our inquiry may be affected if we take them as facts. Well, if those are taken as facts, there's no need for this select committee to hold any hearing. Well, when we talk about the senior management of this MPRC, if they were to give evidence in an overseas location, can we make use of video conferencing to take their views, to ask them to offer comments? Can this be considered? The former senior management people of the MTRC. I don't know. I have to ask the Secretariat. The first question, are we going to invite experts to help us understand the technical matters? Second, when we ask witnesses to give us information, are we going to also provide video conferencing? We look at the rules of procedure and also practice and procedure of past select committees. I don't think that was adopted previously. Maybe I can provide some supplementary information for members' reference. I think the starting point is to look at the proposed practice and procedure. And in paragraph 3, item E, is stated that the cost of the proceedings should be kept within reasonable bounds. The 2 proposals from Mr. Wu Chi-wai may have cost implications. So the cost of the proceedings should be kept within reasonable bounds. In the past, in the inquiry into the chaos when the new airport was commissioned, there were experts providing input. And some cost was involved in paying the experts. So the select committee may wish to consider whether experts should be engaged, and also to bear in mind the cost implication. As for the methods of taking evidence, well, it's not specifically mentioned in the proposed practice and procedure, I believe video conferencing is a possible way of doing it, but we have to bear in mind the cost dimension. Mr. Chair, the question is, do we need to get some experts? Mr. Wu Chi-wai has pointed out that there are technical matters. For example, the timetable, the schedule, the flow of work. And I hope we will not be asked to look into the works contracts. If we need expert advice, of course, we can have a discussion first. We have the MTRC, we have the administration, and also some consultancy firms involved in this case. We may have to find out whether the contract timetable is reasonable. And some parties may claim that the responsibility lies with another party, or maybe some individuals' viewpoint touches on technical matters. Well, we have people from different sides. For example, the Highways Department, where we can find expertise, and the MTRCL as well. So, Chairman, I'm not saying that we definitely don't need experts. But if we are talking about making a judgment on whether a timetable is a reasonable one, we may not need experts. Let's say the timetable might be too tight. So when something happens, it will lead to a delay. That's a question of accountability. With government people involved in the process. And if the timetable is too tight so that it cannot be adhered to, then it's a question of accountability. I think it falls squarely within our terms to look into that. And as the legal advisor has informed us, we have to bear in mind the cost implications. But if members have a consensus that we need expert advice on a certain point, then we can collectively decide what to do later. Well, I'm not saying that we need to engage experts at this point, but I was just asking whether, as a matter of procedure, that would be allowed under our practice and procedure. So if it can be done, if necessary, then it's fine by me. Well, I think we have other members, such as Mr. Michael Tin, who is familiar with railway projects. Well, if in the future we need to get some experts to help us, well, we would we'll consider that at the time. Well, I think it's, apart from cost, technically speaking, it can be done. Video conferencing can be done. Well, it's not limited according to our practice and procedure, and I don't see any technical difficulty. Well, we can invite the witness to come, and he may decide not to come. And if we ask the witness to testify through video conferencing, he may not agree. So some 6 months or so have elapsed. We were concerned about the billions of dollars spent on preparatory work and site investigation. And we have to look into the supervision by the administration and by the MTRC. According to the board of directors, for such a big project, the advance works was shorter than the other smaller railway projects, which do not involve cross-boundary elements. So we have to look into the adequacy of the advance and preparatory work. Turning to Mr. Wu's point, I believe if necessary, if need be, this council and the public would expect us to get expert advice. But many experts, local experts, are involved in one way or another with MTR's projects. I think we need a lot of time to take evidence and a lot of time to write our report. I want to know more about the availability of experts. The government wanted to get experts, but many of them were found to have been involved in MTR's projects. If we are to get overseas experts, we may have to spend time on their acceptability as experts. So maybe the Secretariat can advise us on the availability first. Where can we find such experts? Otherwise, when we decide to get experts, we may not have time to find them. Well, there are different types of experts in a project like this. We have to get some idea about the expertise that we are seeking. I think we should take one step at a time. At a time when we need to get experts, we would have to look into that. We cannot line up all the experts in all the disciplines. That may not be necessary for the time being. Maybe I can say something to supplement about experts. In the Select Committee on the new Chalapkot Airport, some experts were engaged. Was there a cost? Yes. At that time, we confirmed expert advice was needed in certain areas first. For example, for the information system, we invited 5 experts from Hong Kong University to help us. So one of the possible sources might be our university and the experts there, if there's a need. Other members, further comments? All right, I take it that we endorse the proposed major areas of study. The Secretariat would come up with a list of information to be sought from the administration and MTRC. It would be a proposed list for members' reference. And members will be asked to take a look before the actual invitation is sent out. Whether we're talking about a list of documents or a list of people or witnesses to be invited, I believe they can be updated as we proceed. Yes, of course, but we need to have a proposed list first.
Well, I'm doing this for the first time. I'm not sure whether we will close the door on certain subject. Well, you're not the only one, Mr. Wu. All right. Depending on the situation, we can certainly revise the major area of study. All right, let's move on to item number 3, proposed work plan. Please refer to paper CB4 to 16/14 to 15 bracket 03. I trust that members have read the paper. Any comments, please? Chairman, the Vice Chair. Thank you, Chairman. I agree with most of the paper. As we said a moment ago, we will be inviting quite a lot of witnesses and companies, and time is of the essence. Paragraph 7 refers to some closed-door meetings or some pre-meeting or post-hearing and so on, and that each lasting for 30 minutes. I think we don't really want the witnesses to come unnecessarily again. So each time we have the pre-hearing and post-hearing, how long are they going to take? Of course, we do need to have some closed-door meetings, but after the hearing, there would be more flexibility, and the pre-hearing meeting would allow less in the way of flexibility in the interest of the witnesses. So how are we going to make the arrangement there? We don't really want to cause too much inconvenience to the witnesses, and they're attending our hearings and they are submitting their views. I'm not sure whether this is correct. I think before the hearings, what we have to discuss would be like how we divide up the work in the course of collecting evidence. I think a meeting will be focused on things like that. And after the hearing, I think we can have some discussions on the evidence taken. I think that's more like the situation, isn't it? Chairman, for the pre-hearing meetings, it may not necessarily be 30 minutes. It may be just 10 minutes for a division of work, who is going to be asking what, and so on. And the post-hearing meeting might take a little bit longer. Evidence has been taken, and members might decide whether to re-invite the witnesses and so on. And there can be some preliminary discussion. The pre-meeting can be shorter than the post-hearing meeting. There will be flexibility indeed. What about the hearings themselves? We plan to have the hearings for 2 hours, and if the venue permits, then we can spend 4 hours for the hearing. Mr. Chen, generally speaking, the closed-door meetings can be outside the time for the hearing. Like, let's say we have the meeting, the hearing at 2:30, and we can sit down at 2 o'clock for us to have some discussion, and that will not take up the hearing time. I think the Vice Chairman is concerned that time is really precious. We don't really want to inconvenience the witnesses, and we may eat into the hearing time, leaving us precious little time for the hearing. I think we can sit down and have a chat sooner or earlier than the scheduled time. We can have the work divided up. We may not have every member here for the pre-meeting. Perhaps we can have all the work divided, and some members may supplement questions, and some may like to put questions at the end in order to get the evidence that we desire. PAC and Airport Select Committee, I was there, and we did in a similar way. Vice Chair, yes indeed, like Mr. Chen said, we do need to have some closed-door pre-hearing meeting and post-hearing meeting. Some members may like to put questions, and even if we restrict ourselves to 5 minutes, and it will take quite a bit of time. I just want to utilize the time in an efficient way. Now, let's say the hearing is going to be for 2 hours, then we can meet earlier for us to work out the details. That would be in the interest of efficiency. Mr. Wu, Chairman, I agree with Mr. Chen Kam-lam that we should allow sufficient time for the hearing for the witnesses. In the course of the hearings, we will put a lot of probing questions. Now, my suggestion is that we should arrange for 2 hours per session, and then before and after the hearing, we can have some in-house matters sorted out. Right? Any further points? Okay, then we endorse the proposed work plan. Let's move on to item 4, proposed indexing system for the Select Committee papers. Secretary, please. Chairman, thank you. Please refer to paper number 4. We are expecting a voluminous amount of papers, and depending on the nature and content of the papers, we will index them according to an indexing system, like L for papers provided by the Secretariat, G for papers provided by the government, MTR for papers provided by the MTR Corporation, and S for submissions, and W for witnesses statements. And there will be different indexing for open documents and confidential documents. We will be treating the confidential documents carefully, and members might wish to designate 1 or 2 colleagues to handle the confidential papers. Now, we will be indexing the papers, and they will be paginated properly, and that will be very systematic in the way the papers are handled. Mr. Wu, Chairman, I don't have any comments regarding the indexing system. That the MTRC has already put a lot of confidential documents in the archive. I'm not sure whether this is reasonable. So many documents have been labeled as confidential, and perhaps the legal advisor and the chairman can vet the papers to see whether the documents should be classified as confidential. A lot of documents are like this. Well, it would be difficult. I don't know much about the operation of the corporation. I don't know about the sensitivity. If it is for me to adjudicate whether the documents are confidential, then we will be held liable. Mr. Wu, Chairman, just for example, I did ask them to give us a list of the documents, and they claim that they are confidential. If you think that a certain document should be made public, then you can raise it at the time. Chairman, thank you. If I may refer members to rule number 21 that we have endorsed, paper 01. Here it is about the handling of requests for classifying documents as confidential, para 21. If requests are made by witnesses for classifying certain information or documents as confidential, the Select Committee shall consider carefully the circumstances of each case and the justifications provided. Like the Chairman said, if there is such a request, then members can give it consideration as to whether the document should be so classified as confidential. And from para 22 on, in the course of the hearing, what's going to happen if quotes are made from the confidential documents? Let me clarify. Now, let's say certain documents are classified as confidential. The committee can overrule the classification, can we? Yes, in para 21, yes, indeed. The Select Committee shall consider carefully the circumstances and the justifications. Mr. Wu. Chairman, thank you. Thank you very much, legal advisor, for the input. I think this is very useful. At the end of the day, they can disregard the rules of procedure, and we don't have any subpoena power, and they can choose to ignore us. It's just that they do have the moral responsibility to explain to us. Well, if you insist that the documents be made public, they would withdraw the documents because they don't have any legal liability here. Chairman, now whether we are talking about confidential document or not, we are here to get to the bottom of the matters. We're not here to disclose all of their documents. So whether they classify the documents as confidential, from our point of view, we are not here to debate with them about the confidentiality of the documents, as long as they provide enough information to enable us to get to the bottom of the whole issue. But we have to be careful when we quote from the papers. Yes, indeed, this is something that we have to be careful about. Even if the documents are open, are not classified, we cannot quote from the papers indiscriminately, so that there is a legal liability there. Yes, on this very point, I think one of the difficulties is that the MCRC has put a whole bunch of documents in the database claiming that they are confidential. Nobody would be allowed to take away anything. We don't even have the indexing. Now with para 21 here, we can say that the information is useful and we can ask for further explanation. Maybe we can do it that way.
Deputy Chairman, last time when we look into Timothy Tong's case, and there's something about the ICAC's documents. The whole document might be classified, but we don't need every part of it. But and if at that time we suggested that some of the contents might not be confidential, they agreed that time. But sometimes they will insist on confidentiality, and if we get bogged down by that, it's not going to be helpful, as Mr. Chen Kan-lam has pointed out. Sometimes if we are allowed to quote from a document like that, it will be helpful to elucidate the matter. At that select committee, we asked for the information to be disclosed, and they agreed. But the commercial practice is that if a particular part of the document is confidential, then the entire document will be classified as confidential. I have a question about the indexing system. We estimate that papers will come from 3 sources: electrical, government, and MTRC. What about other companies, other organizations and units? Would that be information furnished by the other organizations? Do we give them a special prefix? That depends on whether we are going to ask for information from outside this group of organization. Do we need a prefix for correspondence? And you mean correspondence with these organizations here? For example, correspondence between electrical and other committees. We have a system for indexing the correspondence like that. Chairman, you mentioned that we have 3 possible sources of information: electrical, government, and MTRC. Right? Yes. The media was concerned about this incident. It was because some of the information was uncovered. Some of the information was uncovered by the media. Would that form part of our information source? Not for I can't see that for the time being. If necessary, as suggested by the Secretariat, we can add more to the list. So far, the 5 categories do not cover media reports. But is it necessary for the Select Committee to index such documents? Because such information from the media is available to members anyway. Chairman, after the collection of information, would the information find its way into a paper prepared by the Secretariat? Maybe that would be good enough for indexing purposes. So far, we haven't decided that media organizations should be invited to attend our hearings. Maybe we can ask the Secretariat to find such media reports for us. And of course, as you have already pointed out, we can add to the list in the future. Do you want us to do that now, or no? It would depend on the progress of our work. You know, the media is the 4th estate, is important. And the MTRC did respond to those press reports direct. Well, we may be able to get the information we want, and then my suggestions may not have to be taken on board. Well, if there's a need to do that, please let us know. We have Wise News service on our website. And there are many news clippings on railway-related subjects. All right, so let's endorse the proposed indexing system for our papers. All right, AOB, item number 5. The next meeting will be held on the 12th of January 2015 at 10:45 a.m. Depending on the items. The next meeting may be a closed-door meeting because we will be talking about witnesses and other procedures. Do members wish to propose anything under AOB? If not, then meeting's adjourned.